There we go.
Breaks optional.
Yeah!
Wow.
Welcome to Breaks Optional Show, where we talk about everything that's interesting, at least to us three. And if it's not interesting to anybody else, well, doesn't matter. We're having fun anyway.
We've decided that officially.
Yeah.
We actually had a meeting and discussed it, and we decided we're going to keep doing what we want to do. Viewers be damned.
Yeah. And all those people that commented, wait a minute. Oh, I think we got one comment. It's Rosalie, and she still loves us.
Yeah, Rose. Forget you.
And Rosalie's prize for being our only commenter is we're going to invite her on the show. I don't know if that's a prize or a punishment.
Yeah, so we officially are going to have the first guest commentator next week. We've got an interesting topic with her. She works with the deaf and blind. And John and I were having a conversation with Rosalie. For those of you that don't know, that's our sister.
One of.
And, say what?
One of.
One of our sisters. And she works with the deaf and blind. And John was talking about virtual reality and what a challenge it would be to adapt to deaf and blind. And Rosalie got excited. Her eyes lit up, and she started spilling all the beans, telling us about VR opportunities for the deaf and blind. And we said, time out, stop. Don't tell us right now, because we want legitimate, first reactions when we hear about this stuff. So next
Save it
week,
for the cameras.
Save it for the cameras, exactly, yeah. So I'm kind of excited. I'm excited to hear what she has to say.
Yeah.
And hopefully you folks will be too.
And hopefully Rosalie accepts the invitation to come next week.
Well, she has to. We announced it to the world.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't.
Yeah, well, there's that.
To go on Oprah, would you?
Oh, yeah. Are you comparing us to Oprah?
Well, kind of, yeah. Except for not quite as rich.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
I think Jonathan's got a bunch of stuff that he wanted to talk about.
All right. First of all, if you watched last time, you know that I mentioned trying out some of the Microsoft field trips and stuff like that in VR. I haven't done any of that, but I did find some other interesting news that I want to share. A couple of VR things. First of all, one having to do with a little bit of what we talked about last week about how VR is great for training in very dangerous things. I don't know how this company is pronounced. I've seen it around. Is it Saab? Saab?
Yeah, Saab.
Yeah.
Born from jets.
Yeah. Or what?
So the VR training for very dangerous things. I mean, is there a simulator for when your wife asks, "Do these pants make me look fat?"
Huh.
Like
you might be on to something.
Seems like it could be useful.
Oh, well. My general response for those kinds of questions is to say, what do you think?
No.
Oh,
the response is, you're beautiful.
Anyway, for real dangerous things here, Saab has...
legitimately dangerous, that question. Right here. Usually when that happens, I'm all like, I think there's a fire in the kitchen. And I run away.
And light a fire in the kitchen.
Light a fire in the kitchen, because that's safer.
Sorry, Jonathan. Go ahead.
Oh, these are all great solutions. We're going to have to create an app that will demonstrate all these things.
Yeah. The relationship danger simulator.
Yeah.
You'll open it up and it'll give you a message like, we need to talk.
Oh.
I think it's funny. Just some.
Fine. Go ahead and go out shooting with your brother.
Right.
Go ahead and do a ridiculous YouTube show that you have to spend time doing.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait.
Anyway.
You didn't hear that one, did you?
No. So going back to dangerous things that you need to train for, Saab has a rocket launcher, and they've created a simulator to show people how to use it, how effective it is, and all that sort of stuff. Interestingly enough, they haven't created any haptics there, so it's all just you're carrying this giant hunk of rocket launcher on your shoulder, pointing it at virtual tanks, and firing it around at them to see how well it works.
Huh.
Well, first of all, I didn't know that Saab was into the blowing things up business.
So yeah, I mentioned Born from Jets. That's actually a Saab. What do you call that? Slogan?
Wait a minute. There was a glitch in the matrix there.
Saab used to make, and I think they still do, jet and military equipment. Oh no! All right, can you hear me good now?
You're jumping ahead in time. You're slowing way down and then jumping ahead really fast.
Dang it!
We'll just start calling you Max Headroom from now on.
Oh yeah, no, that takes me back.
I love it. So
all right, are you back in real time with us?
Okay, tell us about Saab jet engines.
Okay, so
it's a Saab story, Damon.
This is a Saab story. One of their slogans is actually Saab, born from jets, which just sounds really weird and clunky in English. Maybe it sounds better in Swedish. I think. I don't know.
I'm born from jets.
There you go. It does sound better. How is it that every single episode we somehow say something offensive about
some country,
about a different nationality?
Because we're American.
Because we're American. That's right.
Yeah.
Brian, close the door.
Okay, so it turns out
if you join us for the show, do you still promise to watch on YouTube so we get another view?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So you can join us then.
Yes, welcome aboard, Mother. So Saab actually makes jet engines. They used to make whole jets, but I don't know if they still do or not. And they are very big in defense. They do make a lot of defense articles.
Okay.
So sorry, that was a big long Max Headroom-y explanation. Go ahead, John.
It seems like it almost seems like there's two different companies by the name of Saab. And one is the parent company of the car manufacturer, and they're the ones who made this rocket launcher. But the interesting thing is that they're demoing it using a VR headset. So you put the headset on, you put on the rocket launcher, and you can shoot around and fire at things. And I think they're talking about in a later iteration of this putting in haptics, but for now it's nothing. All you feel is the massive weight of the rocket launcher. Go ahead.
So let's just pretend that I'm ignorant. I know that haptic means like.
Okay, I'm there.
Okay, it's not a big stretch for you to pretend that. Haptics to me means like feedback, like tactile feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's different ways that you can handle that. I mean, the most common type is vibrating a controller or something like that when you're playing a game. And that's the one that almost everybody knows about. You're shooting a gun and your controller vibrates.
Sure.
But there are other types of haptics that you can get, like haptic gloves that allow you to feel things as you grab them. Stuff like that.
So right
being able
now,
to feel the recoil of a rifle. Other
okay.
forms of haptics.
That's what I was going to get at. What are they going to give you for haptics other than just a big heavy weight to carry around?
Well,
I'd imagine, you just hook up the rocket launcher to a giant hydraulic press or something, and you pull the trigger, and it knocks you back several feet. That seems safe.
A big pneumatic cylinder that, yeah, that.
maybe, yeah. Or a high pressure pneumatic line,
Yeah, there you go.
Or
They
just a
just get some
real
glass
rocket
there.
launcher.
a real rocket launcher,
Right.
and you wear a virtual reality headset that just
Yep.
shows you a video of what you're actually blowing up.
It sounds all right.
You
There
guys
you go.
are talking about present day things and in the future kind of things, but I'm reading a book right now that I'm absolutely loving. It's the autobiography of a man who became a famous writer, but I've just read 2 or 3 chapters where he's telling about a grunt's eye view of War II,
Oh, wow.
being
Okay.
sent here and there and not knowing the whole big picture, not knowing where they're going or why, just told to get on the truck and go. And then when you get there, they're told what to do. And
Yeah.
it's very, very interesting. It's one I think you'd really like, Damon.
What's it called?
It's called Seldom Disappointed. It's by
And-
Tony Hillerman.
Tony Hillerman.
And he's that author that I have liked so well that writes stories about the Navajo police down in New Mexico,
Okay.
Indian lands. But
Yeah.
and what got me thinking about it was he was telling about the mortar situation. That he doesn't have kind things to say about Army intelligence or the Army that came from West Point or. But it's interesting.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Should I bring up my next VR topic?
Yeah.
So you asked a question last week, what do I think it takes? Or I don't remember exactly what the question was that you asked, but one of the things I got from it, what would it take for VR to actually continue to be successful? And I mentioned just how clunky it is, how much setup it requires, and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
There's the Oculus Quest that's going to be coming out in the second quarter of this year, which will be just one single headset that you strap on your head.
So how is that different from the Rift? To somebody, again, let's pretend that I'm ignorant.
Yeah. So for most VR headsets, we're going to pretend here. For most VR headsets, you have to hook it up to a computer or you have to hook it up to your phone.
Oh, okay. And that's what the Oculus Rift is currently. It's powered by a PC or a laptop. Okay.
Yeah.
And then this new one.
The new one has Oculus Quest has a built-in processor. So you don't have to hook it up to a phone. You don't have to hook it up to a laptop. You can just use it anywhere you want to. Obviously within the constraints of what the computer vision system is able to work with. My experience is too bright of lighting can cause problems. Too dark of lighting can cause problems. And so I would imagine that the Quest is going to suffer from similar issues since it's using the same sort of tracking system.
Oh, okay. So this is just kind of an iterative advancement, not like a really big evolution then, huh? It's like they're taking the Oculus Rift and giving it its own processor, more or less.
Yep. And some of the issues with that is because it has its own processor, it means that the kinds of experiences you're going to have on there are watered down experiences. you can't have the way powerful experiences you can have on a PC, where you have a powerful graphics chip, powerful CPU, and other things like that. So you have a limited capability of the kinds of experiences that you can do. But you are given the ability to take the headset anywhere you want without having to worry about having a high-end PC with you.
Okay.
Which is great. And so far, there hasn't been a whole lot of competition going up against it. But the other major headset manufacturer in this whole race, HTC, well, it's been HTC Vive up to this point. They are coming up with a new one. Let me just look up the name real quick. I've got it right here. I got to remember.
So John, if these, the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive, I think is what you called it. Have they been profitable?
That's a great question. I know that Oculus Rift they are selling their headset for really cheap, almost close to just manufacturing costs.
That's probably.
And their goal is to make money off of the platform. Their what do you call that? The storefront. So they have a site called Oculus Home, where you can go and you can buy all the games and stuff like that. And so they try to make the money off of the games rather than off the hardware itself, which is a regular enough practice among hardware makers. If they have the hardware and they're tied closely with the software, they'll try to sell it cheap so that lots of people get the headset or whatever the hardware is, and then they make their money off of software.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So there have been people who have used it, but it hasn't been, there's not mass adoption yet at this point. But the Vive, HTC Vive, they are creating a new headset called the Vive Cosmos. And in their little demo reel, they haven't given a whole lot of details about it, but there are some interesting things that they're showing. It's going to be capable to be used with a PC, which is kind of cool.
Okay.
But also shows capabilities of hooking it up to your phone, which is something we haven't seen yet before. Usually, the headset only works with a phone or only works with a PC. But they're teasing the fact that this headset will be able to work with both, and will have the full experience of being able to move around your head anywhere you want to. And so that's something we haven't seen before, and I think is really cool. It would be great if I had one headset that I could use for both my phone and my laptop.
Yeah.
So if you can hook it up to your phone, does that make it so that you can kind of move around in the world a little easier?
Yeah. You would have the freedom to take it off to other areas and do different kinds of experiences rather than being locked down to your PC.
Yeah. I'm thinking, I guess maybe augmented reality is more along the lines of what I'm thinking. Like, you remember the Pokemon Go craze of a couple of years ago? Like, if you actually had an augmented reality headset, like that kind of a game, I think could be pretty interesting, where things pop up in the real world.
Yeah.
I tried the Pokemon Go game a couple of times and just found it frustrating. Like, I couldn't just leave it. I think you had to have it on the whole time. And if you turned off the screen on your phone, then it was no longer looking for Pokemons or something. And for me, when I'm running, like, if I just left my screen on the whole time, my phone would be dead by the time I was done running. And so
for sure.
I didn't care for that particular experience, but I don't know, maybe an augmented reality thing could be interesting in that kind of way. I don't know.
So I don't know. So theoretically, you'd think these headsets that they're creating, they have cameras on the front of them. They're using those cameras to look at the world around it and decide what the shape of it is, and that's how you move through the world in the virtual sense.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
And that's what my headset does. But for the time being, at least not until recently, there wasn't any like pass-through camera type thing. And because of the way that the pass-through cameras work,
pass-through camera.
You got to.
Let's pretend that I'm ignorant and I don't know what pass-through. This is, of course, for the benefit of our viewers who might not know, and not for the benefit of experts like myself, who of course know what pass-through cameras are.
Yes, the pass-through camera, in this case, would be the cameras that are on the front of these headsets are used just for the computer to know where you are. And it's not made so that you can see the world around you. A pass-through camera is something that's mounted on there specifically so that you can see the world around you. And you just do, I mean, there are some applications that allow you to see that, and they call it just pass-through camera. So your vision is completely blocked off by the headset, but the camera is allowing you to see what you're looking at generally.
I still think my eyes are better.
That's certainly true.
Yeah,
but cameras are very low resolution, and the screens are much lower resolution than your eyes.
So why would
a limited supply of your eyes for the world?
It's true. Unless you're volunteering for them to take your eyes and mount them on a headset, that's not going to happen. No. So to answer the question, why would you want to do that? It's so that you could do augmented reality type things. Oh, go ahead.
I have another reason you might want to do that, and I guess it's related to night vision goggles. Like you could put sensors up that are sensitive to other wavelengths, infrared or UV.
Like the Predator.
Yes, like the Predator.
You see in different wavelengths.
Or no light wavelength at all. It could be based off of audio signals, right? And have a sonar-based visual system.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be...
Oh.
Hey, have I ever told you about augmented sensory perception? Probably not, because I just made the name up, but it's a concept that me and Lewis and Leroy talked about several years ago.
You didn't make it up. Darkwing Duck made it up ages ago.
Probably.
As
all good ideas.
Yeah. Huh. Anyway, go ahead.
So anyway, this was part of a larger conversation that my sons, Lewis and Leroy, and I had about, how much could you augment a person's abilities, to turn them into like a superhero or supervillain, if that's what you choose. And one of the things that we were talking about is you remember as a kid playing a game where you would draw a letter on somebody's back and they had to guess what that letter is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you got
low in church.
Yeah. I was always raptly attentive to the speaker myself, but I saw other people playing this game.
It might have been me you saw.
But
no, you were usually out in the foyer. You weren't in there playing the letter game.
Wait a minute. Who's mom in this episode?
Yeah.
So anyway, you have kind of a low resolution image recognition on your back using tactile senses, but you do have some ability to recognize shapes. And I thought, could you actually take a patch of skin and attach like a 2D array of vibrating transducers, so like little vibrators, onto your skin, maybe on your arm where there's more sensors, maybe on your back where you're not using that skin much anyway. And could you actually train yourself to see with, say, your forearm something that is being picked up by a camera?
Oh wow! So it'd be wow, yeah.
And you could put different colors represented as different frequencies of vibration.
Huh.
And so, so this is something that I really want to try out sometime.
So
like build this
have eyes on the back of your shoulder.
Sure.
Don't you know that mothers already have that ability?
Well, I'm not a mother, so I've got to settle for the next best thing, which is augmented sensory input. Or whatever it was I called it.
You could have eyes on the back of your head. You could be wandering around through the woods, and you could have that camera projecting a picture onto your forearm while you're walking forward. You could see what's going on behind you. This is fascinating.
Rear view camera.
Yeah.
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 I think in order to test this out, you would have to be willing to blindfold yourself for a few months to see if you could get to the point, or maybe even longer than that, to the point where you're relying solely on this tactile vision system. That as you're walking around, see if your brain would be able to start recognizing what's going on.
So maybe that way. Maybe you could do it a different way, which is like cover one eye with like a viewer, and that eye is seeing the same thing that your patch of skin is seeing. And I wonder if your brain would start to correlate after a while. That what that eye is seeing is what the patch of skin is seeing. And then maybe you can get rid of that eye seeing it, and then maybe your body would still kind of reroute the signals and start to process them through your image receptor parts of your brain.
Interesting. So have you guys seen that episode of Smarter Every Day where he has the reverse steering bike?
Oh, I haven't seen it. Just the ads for it.
Oh, it's an interesting episode. He makes a bike that turns the wrong way, and initially when you try to drive it, it's incredibly frustrating and near impossible, is what he says. It feels like it's impossible, but if you persevere and just keep riding it for a little while, your brain just takes over and just switches one day and just tells you to ride your bike that way. Well, I also saw a documentary about an experiment that some scientists, I believe in England, performed, where they made their subjects wear a headgear that had a periscope on it that flipped the image upside down.
Yeah.
It had a prism, not a periscope, a prism that flipped the image upside down. And people just wore that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for several months. And they just walked around seeing things, kind of the same thing. Their people's brains initially rejected it, and, they got sick and they got, felt
nauseated.
And after a while, it just all of a sudden clicked, and all of a sudden, they functioned in the world without any discomfort at all.
Right.
So I wonder if it would be like those two, where like at first it would just be this weird sensation on your arm, and I wonder if it would just be like a light switch. Suddenly one day you're just like, hey, check it out, and you can close your eyes and you can reach around and you can see what's going on, and your brain just gets it one day.
Uh-huh.
Man, I hope that's how it works.
Those of us who wear glasses have already experienced that on a smaller scale. When you get a new pair of glasses and walk out of your optometrist's office and you,
True.
ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time that I do that, I step out and take the first step down out of the optometrist's office, and I about crack the sidewalk with how hard I slam my foot down and misjudge how far down the step. That's the worst.
You know what's the worst? Jokes about brats. That's a Wisconsin joke for you.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Oh.
Yeah, you heard about them German sausages, right?
Oh, I did.
They're the worst.
Excellent.
Or not, whatever.
Well,
Excuse me?
I mean, I hate to admit it, but it feels like we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here.
Yeah, whose turn is it? Who else has news?
Mine's pretty short.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. If you remember several episodes ago from the archives that never aired, I talked about.
You're going to have a special edition. I'm going to edit some of that together, and we'll publish it.
A special 8-hour edition with all of the old episodes.
For the
All the
die
technical
fans.
difficulties.
For you, Mom.
The director's cut, if you will.
Yeah.
So several months ago, I brought up a company called Hickory's Power that is making a 2-stroke opposed piston diesel engine.
Yeah.
And I found it really fascinating because it's supposed to be a very efficient engine. In fact, the version that they're making to drop into an F-150, they claim that it'll get actually they make both a diesel version of it and a gasoline version of this engine. They claim that in an F-150 they should be able to get in the neighborhood of 37 miles per gallon.
Wow.
On the gas version, and with the diesel version more like 41 42 miles per gallon in an F-150. And so as from an efficiency standpoint, I find that just really fascinating. I saw that there's an announcement. They actually announced it back in December that let me just take a look at this. That Tyson Food is in California is going to do I guess a trial period with Hickory's, and they're putting a opposable piston engine into a semi truck that they use for hauling food around in California. And so the kind of an industrial size engine. So that sounds pretty cool.
Real quick, just a reminder. I think I remember you talking about this engine was a 2-stroke, which usually means that there's one power stroke per cycle of the piston, but this it somehow fires both on the top and the bottom of the piston, and so it has 2 power strokes per cycle.
So the way that this works is and I'll use my hands here, is each cylinder has 2 pistons in it, and they oppose each other.
So 2 crankshafts.
2 crankshafts, yeah, one on the top and one at the bottom of the engine. And the engine, as I recall, is both turbocharged and supercharged in order to generate enough pressure and put enough air into the engine.
No, let's just pretend that one of us didn't know what turbocharged or supercharged meant.
Okay, who's going to
I'm
pretend?
guessing it's mom.
Oh, okay. Okay, so if we're pretending that, turbocharged means that you take some of the exhaust gas that's coming off of the engine, and you use it to turn a turbine. And the other end of that turbine, through the shaft, is connected to an impeller or a fan, a compressor. So you use the exhaust gas to compress incoming air, clean air going into the engine. So that's turbocharging. Supercharging is when you drive with a belt or a chain, a compressor. So you have that belt connected to, say, the crankshaft, and so you directly drive the compressor with that. And turbochargers and superchargers both have advantages and disadvantages. One of the disadvantages of a turbocharger is it takes a little bit of time for it to get spinning or to spool up, and so you hear people talking about turbo lag in their turbocharged engines. And so because the exhaust gas has to get the turbine turning before it can start compressing air. Now a supercharger, even at low RPMs, will start compressing air. What's the disadvantage of a supercharger, Damon?
Parasitic loss.
So, okay, so it's always sapping energy.
You're using engine horsepower to turn the compressor. So you get a little bit of a loss of horsepower, but you're able to make more horsepower by compressing, by getting more air into the engine and thereby being able to burn more fuel.
Right.
And, same idea for a turbocharger, except you're using just the waste, the exhaust. So the turbos are more efficient. They just have lag.
Right, right. So this engine is using both of them to kind of overcome some of the pitfalls.
So that reminds me of old two-stroke diesel Detroit engines that powered semi-trucks and all kinds of equipment, and a lot of military equipment. A lot of them were turbocharged and supercharged.
Really?
And yeah. So those old Detroit diesels, the old two-strokes, can't run without some kind of charger. Like the incoming air has to be higher than ambient in order to force air through the engine and to force exhaust out and all that. They can't run unless they have some kind of charger.
Huh. Okay. That is interesting. I did not realize that about the old Detroit engines. Interesting.
I could talk for hours about those. I love them. They're just cool. They sound cool. They just have this unique sound. If you got in a semi truck that had a Detroit diesel right now, Elroy, and they started driving it down, or you started driving it, you would recognize it. As we had some of those old Detroits on some of our farm trucks.
Oh, really?
And it is a unique sound. Like when you hear a diesel semi truck, you hear like the clattering, you can hear the clattering noise. Those old Detroits made just such a cool sound, almost a like.
Okay.
I can't do it justice, but it's cool.
Hey, so tell me this.
Yeah.
Do you engage in the practice of trying to guess what diesel engine you're hearing coming down the road?
Absolutely. I do. I think I hear a 6.7 coming down the road. There it is. Woo! That's got to be a 5.9. Oh no, it's not a 5.9. I'm bad at this. Yeah, I do.
Yep.
And it's worn off onto Haley now. My 15-year-old daughter. The other day we were in a parking lot. Someone a few cars up started up a diesel pickup truck, and she's like, "That sounds like your old truck, Dad." We looked up the parking lot, and sure enough, it was a 7.3 diesel, 7.3 Ford Power Stroke. Like, good work, Haley.
Awesome.
Yeah. Sorry for derailing.
No,
I love
speaking
diesel.
of rails,
Yeah.
that actually segues
Nice
into the
segue.
second part
Wow.
of what I was going to talk about,
I like
which
it.
is old opposed piston engine designs.
Hold up. Old?
Old.
Oh, so this is
1943.
no kidding.
1943, a British company started working on an engine for locomotives
Yeah.
that ended up being called the Deltac. The Deltac has opposed pistons, but they are arranged in a triangle. So you have 6 pistons in this triangle, 2 pistons on a side. So your cylinders are arranged in this triangle. And so on this side, you've got 2 pistons going bunk, bunk, bunk. In the corners, you have crankshafts. So 3 crankshafts. On this side, you've got 2 pistons going back.
Yeah.
And on the top, 2 pistons going back and forth. And so they made locomotives. And sometimes just the engines are called Deltacs. Sometimes the entire locomotive is called a Deltac. But this has been around for quite some time, apparently.
75 years.
How do you know that, Mom?
I'm quick.
You're just really quick with the math.
And so, it's interesting that, everything new is just old and recycled.
Well, some of the
we were
best
talking
inventions.
about that about electric cars last week.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, and actually, I believe in the 1930s, there was some companies working on airplane engines and had workable opposed piston engines that were more efficient than, just regular airplane engines. But then the jet engine came along, and all of a sudden, regular piston fired airplanes became much less interesting.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, that's all I had about opposed piston engines.
Well, that was fascinating.
Sure.
I remember when we talked about this before. You talked about the airplanes, or them using this design in airplanes before.
Right.
But to bounce off of what you said, Damon, it does seem like a lot of innovations or inventions, maybe more innovations, have more to do with just taking all the technologies that exist out there and putting it in a form factor that we haven't seen before, or cleaning it up, making it nicer. Some of the things that we use most or that we love most were basically just a collection of technologies that existed before, but somebody put it together in a way that made it appealing, easy to use, or cheaper.
I was gonna say that. Or finally, the material science caught up with the concept.
Right, and then that's actually one of the things that I think is enabling this opposed piston engine to become so efficient is the materials that can be put to task in it. This high temperature ceramics and high strength alloys and metal alloys and stuff like that. And so sometimes the concept is there, but the technology isn't yet available to support the technology.
Nice. Well, This kind of reminds me of when we were interviewing for that reality TV show, Elroy.
Uh-huh.
And, we kind of had the same conversation about that. Old patents are fascinating. Like even before the turn of the last century, or even in the 1800s, like looking through these old patents, sometimes you're like, oh my goodness, these people were onto this concept 100 years before it actually came into widespread use. It's fascinating. Like reading some of the old hard science fiction is so cool. Like I just recently have discovered it, and it's cool. Like some of these guys from the 30s and the 20s were talking about technologies that we're just now figuring out.
Interesting.
It's cool. Yeah, it's fascinating.
What's the name of the guy that painted the Sistine Chapel?
Oh,
Michael.
Yeah,
Michelangelo.
Yeah.
He came up with a lot of concepts that we're just now beginning to know how to put together.
Were we talking about Da Vinci?
I don't know. Is it Da Vinci?
well, yeah, Da Vinci did a lot of invention. I think he invented a parachute, or had drawings of parachutes. Let's see, what else? Oh, and I love, one of the things I love looking at is old drawings of inventions, because they wouldn't just sketch the functional part of it, but they would turn it into a piece of art, like put in lots of extra detail, and you just don't usually see that now. But
There's an episode of Futurama where they find Da Vinci and they go back to his home planet. He's an alien. And they go back to his home planet, and the reason he came to Earth is because he was the stupidest man on his planet. It's a good episode. Anyway.
And of course, Isaiah saw all kinds of things that are happening in our day.
Right.
What's that?
Mm-hmm.
I said, and of course, Isaiah saw all kinds of things that are happening in our day that weren't in his.
Can you imagine trying to describe that, being from Isaiah's day, and trying to describe what you're seeing, right?
Yeah.
How could you describe seeing fighter jets and ICBMs and tanks and television and smartphones? How could you describe that? Right?
Right. You're like, oh, you know what? Never mind.
No wonder that Revelations is so difficult to read. It's this dude was trying his dangdest to try to, you know what I mean? Trying his hardest to describe what he was seeing in the future, and he's just like, it's a beast, I guess, and there's fire and there's like fangs and
that was just trying to describe a rock concert.
Yeah.
And what he had to go through to try to describe a train going across the country, leaving tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Nice.
So what did you have, Damon?
Well, so we've got a little kind of a cool physics and relativity story. So,
okay.
All right, this one's. I'm trying to think how much detail we need. So
we need all the detail.
We don't have time for all the detail.
Oh.
But this is an exciting announcement from some astronomers and physicists. So, so dark matter? dark matter is so called because as we look out at the galaxies and watch the motion in the galaxies, the stars that we can see are moving way faster than what they should be by how much matter there is, contained in those stars and their solar systems and in that galaxy. If the amount of matter were as low as what we expect it to be, as what we figure it should be, those stars moving at that speed should fly out into space, should fly away. Galaxies should just scatter themselves, but they don't, and we don't know why. So as a crutch, we've developed dark matter. We don't know what it is. So all the matter that we can see, all the matter that we can touch, all the matter that we can interact with, we call it baryonic matter. And judging by the motion in the universe that we can see, baryonic matter only makes up a tiny portion of all of the matter in the universe. Like, I can't remember what it is, 20% or something like that. A very small percent. So we've come up with this concept of dark matter because we can see that there is way more gravity on a huge scale that Newtonian physics doesn't work on these huge scales. It breaks down. And relativity works, but only if we put this crutch into it. And so maybe it's named wrong. Maybe it shouldn't be called dark matter. Maybe it should be called dark gravity. Because we're just assuming that it's more matter out there that's causing the gravity, right?
Or it could be called nothing else matters.
Yeah.
Does this matter at all?
Well, so every single new galaxy, every single galaxy that we've been able to observe and to make measurements of has borne out that there is too much gravity for the amount of matter we can see. Every single one follows the same pattern, except this last week, scientists announced that they found a galaxy that behaves exactly as it should for how much matter we can see in it. They found a galaxy with no dark matter.
Oh.
Which is really cool, because we've never seen one like that. It acts exactly as it should by our models, without the crutch of the dark matter. So
galaxies are finally starting to learn what we expect of them.
Yeah, we finally found one of these educated galaxies, not all these dummy galaxies.
Well, now you've gone
dark matter,
insulted all of the other galaxies. You couldn't just settle for insulting other countries, could you?
Right. We set our sights very high in this show. We're not just going to insult the whole Earth. We're going to insult all the galaxies.
It's at this time that we wish to make a formal apology. If we haven't insulted you, we're getting around to it.
So, don't be insulted that we haven't insulted your particular corner yet. We'll get there.
That should pretty much take care of it.
Yeah. So that's what I've got. Just we finally found a galaxy that I've got one more kind of cool thing. We've seen the farthest single star through overlapping gravitational lensing.
Oh wow.
So
that's a trick.
So seeing stars, individual stars outside of our galaxy is difficult, right? We've seen a single star. We've finally seen a single star that was 14 billion miles away. And the way that we were able to see it was that multiple very massive galaxies happened to line up just right that the light from this one star got focused by the one galaxy and focused by another galaxy all the way up till its light came to us.
That's right, Foo. We use galaxies as lenses.
Right. Gravitational lensing is a really cool concept, and it's kind of cool. We saw a single star 14 billion light years away from us.
Wow. The only problem with those telescopes is they're really hard to move and focus on something else.
You said in your thing that it's so many billion miles away, and I was going to ask, did you mean light years, or did you mean miles?
Oh, light years, not miles. Yes, thank you.
That's a lot more.
Years.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, hey, we need somebody to fact check this for us.
I know. Speaking of fact checking, I totally was wrong on the amount of rocks that Apollo 14 brought back from the moon last week. I said it was 160 kilograms, and I was exaggerating by a factor of 4. It was only 45 kilograms of moon rocks.
Boo. Fake news.
This show is very bad. Their facts are very bad. Thank you.
They're the best bad facts that you could ever want to see.
That's going at the beginning of this episode, right?
What? This show is very bad. That part?
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. Well, that's all I've got for this week.
Okay.
It's been a fun episode. Thank you for coming along for the ride, Mom, and thank you for fact checking us.
And for all of you guys,
if you would like to be a live fact, comment in the comment section below, and then we'll invite you onto the show to come and fact check us in real time.
That's right. Yeah. And so for everybody that's watched all the way to this part, we'll give you the secret code word of the week, which is green jello.
It's a good dessert and a good band at the same time.
Yeah, indeed.
I've never heard the band.
And if you comment in the comment section below, we will make sure that we insult you during our next episode.
Elroy, you said it was a good dessert. I thought it was rather on shaky ground.
You hear that, Rosalie?
Very good. And that's probably
all
our
right.
cue that it's time to wrap this up.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, everyone, and good night.